Welcome to the second tutorial for the physics tool bag. In this tutorial, I'm going to once again talk about force objects. I'm going to cover some different types of force generators and use these force generators to create a tornado effect. I'm going to start off by creating a new force object. And the first force generator I'm going to add is a drag force generator. The drag force generator works by creating a force that pushes against the velocity of a rigid body. And since the rigid bodies in the scene don't have any velocity on them right now, you don't see any force being generated. The exception is this sphere over here. This sphere already has some velocity on it. And the reason for that is that I'm using a rigid body helper. The rigid body helper is a script that comes with the physics tool bag that lets you add velocity to your rigid bodies. So right now you can see that this sphere has a velocity of 7.29 in the x-axis. And since it has velocity on it, you can see that the drag force generator is pushing against it. For now, I'm going to set this magnitude to 0. The drag force generator is going to become important later on in the tutorial, but for now, let's just leave it alone. Next, I'm going to add an axis force generator. And to better demonstrate this, I'm going to move our force object to the center of these boxes. There are two important settings with the axis force generator: the radial magnitude and the attraction magnitude. The radial magnitude drives objects around the axes in a circular fashion. If the magnitude is positive, objects will move around it in a clockwise direction, and if it's negative, it'll move around the axes in a counterclockwise direction. Let's see how this has affected the scene. You'll notice that the axis force generator is moving the objects around in a counterclockwise direction, but the objects are also getting flung away from the axis force generator. Since I'm trying to create a tornado effect, that's not really what I want. Okay, for now, I'm going to set the radial magnitude to 0. You can see the attraction magnitude draws objects towards the axes. Let's set that back to 25. Now that the axis force has an attraction magnitude of 20, the objects won't get flung out into the scene as quickly. But as their velocity builds, they'll still escape the force generator and fly out into the scene. Because I don't want the objects building too much velocity, I'm going to go back to the drag force generator, and I'm going to give it a magnitude of 2. So the drag force will keep the objects from moving too quickly. And when they can't build enough velocity to escape the force object, they all get drawn towards the force object and they begin clumping together. I want the objects to accelerate more as they're moving towards the force object. So I'm going to add a fall off to the drag force. I'm also going to increase the radial magnitude of the axis force and the attraction magnitude. I want the objects to move a little more quickly. Next, I'm going to add a direction force generator. Tornadoes lift things up into the air, and that's something ours is not doing right now. So I'm going to give it a magnitude of 20. Also, I'm going to give this a fall off as well. And let's see what we got now. All right, this is coming together pretty nicely. But one last thing I'm going to add is a force mask. I added a cylindrical force mask since that fits the volume of our tornado pretty well. I'm going to give it a radius of 20. I'm going to give it a pretty tall height. And I'm giving it a tall height because I don't want objects that are getting sucked up into the air to get clipped too quickly. And I'm also going to give it a fall off. So now the objects in our scene won't get sucked up all at once. As a finishing touch, I've created an animation to add to our tornado. So now our tornado starts out, it picks up some objects, and then travels through the scene, causing devastation and destruction. And that's all I have for now. Feel free to check out more of our tutorials or visit our forums.